did in our processes to understand what mattered to local people. So earlier on this year, we held an event which was run by Healthwatch in partnership with Nottingham Community Voluntary Service. And essentially, we held a kind of workshop with representation from voluntary and community sector organisations from all over Nottingham.
Struggling to hear with that telephone in the background. This is Liz, the interpreter. I'm not sure where that's coming from.
I'll just pause, Liz. Okay, I think it's stopped ringing. Are we okay? So I'll start again. So earlier this year, Healthwatch and Nottingham Community Voluntary Service came together to run an event, bringing together voluntary and community sector organisations from across the city, and it's those organisations who work with people. I think Jane and I term the representatives people who know people, because we wanted to really understand what mattered to local people, and we held this workshop and brought together all of those individuals to help us understand where we should be focusing as a city ICP. And as part of that, what we did is we built up some people profiles, and I've got an example of one of those on the screen. And really, I think the important thing to pull out of this is to say that people's health is impacted by lots of different things. It's not necessarily just your physical health which will impact your health and well-being. We've got examples from here on these profiles about how people like to access information, some of the cultural or language barriers that might get in the way of people accessing services, difficulties in filling out forms to be able to access services as well. And even having access to a good meal is an important thing in order for people to feel good and have good health and well-being. So really what that means is that there are much wider determinants than just your kind of traditional physical health that impact on your health and well-being. So what we did is we used some of that information alongside of all of the data that we collected and our other bits of engagement to establish 5 particular programme priorities for the ICP, which are focused on citizens in Nottingham. We've also got a couple of priorities at the bottom there you can see about developing our partnership and supporting our partners in the response to COVID. But what the impact that Healthwatch were really able to help us with is to understand that actually to really make a difference, we have to be focusing on people. And the way in which we're working within the City ICP now is to look at cohorts of people. I've highlighted 3 in particular there, which show our focus on people who face severe multiple disadvantage. So that could be somebody who's homeless or somebody with complex mental health needs that typically we don't have one health need. And this programme recognises that there are roles for all organisations to play in supporting people who face severe multiple disadvantage. Care leavers are also a priority group for us, and we've brought together our partners to focus on how collectively we can work together better to support people leaving the care system. And then another one of our programmes, I mean, there's a big representation within Nottingham, people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. And we want to be able to work together better to reduce the health inequalities that are seen within that group. And Leslie, who I know is going to come on to speak next, has been a real force for good in helping us understand how we can do that. So just a short introduction, and I'll hand over to Leslie in just a second. But we always welcome input from everyone into our work, and I've put the contact details for some of the key people within our ICP on the screen. I'm sure that these slides will be shared at the end as well, for people to be able to contact us if you would like to do so. One final really important thing to say is that just because we've done the engagement at the beginning, that doesn't mean that that's where it ends. Jane and I have been discussing recently the importance of actually reviewing our work a year on and understanding actually from what we heard before, are the programmes that we've been running actually addressing the issues that we heard the first time around? And so we have a plan to do that within the next couple of months. So we'll make sure that we feed back to everyone involved as to how we're getting on as an ICP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rich. Thank you. And yes, and I think we will be sharing the slides and kind of once, and hopefully we'll have some bit of a follow-up information, including the slides. And thank you very much for that. And now, if I please welcome Leslie Mcdonald.
Oh, well, okay, yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be invited then to speak at this meeting. And I would like to follow on from where Richard left off in talking about how the Healthwatch has helped to influence the work around the health inequalities within the Black and Asian minority ethnic communities. I'd like to start by just saying a little bit briefly about myself, so that you have a sense of where I'm coming from. I haven't got a presentation to share, so I'll just be speaking from my notes. So I've been involved for, I guess, the best part about 30 years or so in a wide range of roles as accountable officer, providing and promoting services for Black and Asian minority communities, including working as the chief executive for First Enterprise, a business agency, currently as the chair of the New Art Exchange, which is an arts-based organisation whose mission then is to provide art for all from diverse culture. I was amongst one of a handful of people from the voluntary community sector, and in particular, somebody from a Black and minority background who attended the community listening events, which Rich mentioned in his presentation, which was organised by NCVS and Healthwatch. And at that time, when the ICP had identified its priority, and in particular how it would wish to engage with the Black and minority communities, the focus at the time was simply in terms of improving engagement by looking at ways in which it can better get its message across to the community. And an example of that would be improving the quality then of its translation and interpretation services, so that people had a better understanding of what the partners were trying to deliver and the services that was available for the local people community to access. It came abundantly clear that alone would not make a huge difference, or would probably only make a marginal difference then in terms of improving health inequalities then for the BAME communities. So the Healthwatch was influential then in helping to get the ICP then to reconsider its ambition then of how it would work with the BAME communities. And we have now, through that work, been able to have a more ambitious plan going forward of how the ICP would then work with the community. So not just simply looking at engagement, but looking at how the whole commissioning of health and social care is acquired, and ensuring that smaller providers then are not excluded then from the commissioning process. So that is just one example of how the Healthwatch then has helped to influence what is actually happening locally. Also, as a result of the influence of the Healthwatch, and thanks to Jane and Tracy, I know that Tracy is no longer with you, but I think it was Jane and Tracy that actually nominated or suggested that I would be an appropriate person then to actually represent the voice of the Black and Asian communities on the steering group for the ICP, and that has offered me then the opportunities then to be able to scrutinise the strategies then which are being presented across the other four main priorities which the ICP has set out, and always be in a position then where I can ask the difficult or challenging questions around how those policies and programs and processes then will impact on the Black and Asian minority communities, and also to ensure that there is a conscious thinking always about how the strategies actually knit together and how that might impact on the community. So I'm really indebted, I guess, then to Healthwatch for enabling me then to get onto the steering group of the ICP, and that alongside my role on the Health and Wellbeing Board is given some presence then in terms of the community having a voice or representative at a key place around the table, looking at health and social care services and strategies within the city. So that's really all I wish to say. That, you know, without the involvement of the Healthwatch, I don't think that, you know, we would be in a position then where we would have had a strong representative from the community.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and it's really reassuring and great to hear that, and from your perspective, that we are actually kind of influencing in the inclusion of the BAME community into the decision-making process. And we do intend to review these annual events, and as Rich said at the beginning, we are looking into where we are a year on. So thank you very much for that informative and helpful contribution. I am aware that we are slightly behind time, and I would like to welcome my colleague Anna, who would say a very short outline about our Maternity Partnership program, which she has been involved in the last 2 years, and which is another way that we demonstrate working in partnership while having an impact. Anna.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Anna Rutkowska, and I'm Maternity Voices Partnership Project Officer. I joined newly forming MVP in April 2018. Maternity Voices Partnership is an NHS working group that aims to review and improve maternity services by putting the experiences of women and their families at the centre. The Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Maternity Voices Partnership is multidisciplinary in nature, and our aim is to bring together representatives from organisations involved in maternity care and local women and their families. And Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire is supporting MVP. I always felt that Healthwatch is a perfect home for MVP because it's an independent organisation that helps people get the best from the local health and care services. And together we work to give women and families a strong voice that is heard by those who design and deliver services. Maternity Voices Partnership Board is made of professional members of the group, including midwives from both Nottingham University Hospitals Trust and Sherwood Forest Hospital Foundation Trust, representatives from the clinical commissioning groups in our area, as well as representatives from the City and County Council. Our MVP is also linked into local charities such as Zephyrs and the Emily Harris Foundation, who support local families. We also have a great team of passionate MVP volunteers who represent and reach out to local women and their families. And Maternity Voices Partnership is eager to hear what was good about the care and what could be better. And I really believe that sharing experiences helps to improve the maternity services in the future. And working in this partnership with all involved in maternity care is our main goal. by bringing all to the one table and listening to the voice of birthing people, we can really change the services for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you. That's really helpful to hear. And now I would like we will move to our next part of our program, which is to share a little bit about how we make a difference. And in that, I will welcome my colleague whom you heard from the beginning, Hester Kapoor. And Hester, over to you.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to our Making a Difference section of our AGM. This section is about how the work of Healthwatch has tangibly informed our commissioners and providers, and so provided health and social care services for you, To start with, we have Anne Whitfield, one of our volunteers, talking about gathering vulnerable people's information needs during lockdown 1 of COVID-19. These are a set of videos that are coming now, and if the videos are not smooth, it is due to a streaming issue, which is beyond our control, and not to do with an issue with your device. So please don't worry or try to change your settings. So up first is Anne Whitfield.
Apologise, everybody. I think Nathan is working on our video again.
Something fantastic, which was Healthwatch, I think, did something fantastic, which was got in exactly at the right time to ask people about the messages that were coming out, particularly for older and vulnerable people. Were they clear about what was coming out to them? And they were not. And there was that incredibly useful and I think really unforgettable survey, which was so helpful to so many people. And I got involved because I have a wide network of different groups, but also different people. I already had a buddy group during the pandemic, and it was grown and grown and grown. But I was able then, through that, I was able to tap into that. And also, it was not only useful to Healthwatch to get the information that they gave, but it was hugely useful to the people who were interviewed, people over 70, and I am one of them. We had felt that we had been told to sort of go back into your corner and keep quiet. We'll tell you what to do, right? So we had no voice. And Healthwatch gave us a voice, and it gave us a voice that mattered. We felt that we were actually, I as an interviewer, but also as an over 70s, I felt that we were actually contributing something that was useful. And a lot of opportunities for that had been taken away from us. Healthwatch then did a huge, it was hugely beneficial. It did a huge favour, more than a favour, to a lot of people, because they felt much safer. And I only wished, I had known all the older people in our region to be able, and so it was mutually extremely productive and useful and supportive.
Thank you, Anne, and I'm sure you will agree with me that that was a very passionate speech from Anne. I think if you haven't got your mic turned off and your camera turned off, please can you turn it off? I can hear some chatting in the background. That actual survey brought in 435 responses over 2 weeks and has been distributed widely, and the findings of which have been shared across the ICS and ICPs. So now we are going to hear from David Ainsworth from the CCG. He is going to talk about how the findings from this Vulnerable People's Information Needs Survey help to inform their work. And this will be delivered through another video.
No, I think we've got David live.
Sorry, Nathan.
David,
Oh, sorry, David.
us.
Sorry, David, you're with us. My apologies. Here's
No
David,
problem.
live and clear.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and hopefully you can hear me okay. And it's great to be with you this afternoon. Thank you very much for the invite. And I'd like to say, first of all, a huge thank you to Healthwatch and all the volunteers involved in Healthwatch for all of your hard work this year, and to all the members of the public who have taken the time to engage and give their feedback. We're truly grateful for the work you're all doing. And hearing people's voices and experiences of health and care services is what drives us all to improve things. Making a positive difference to people's lives is why I remain passionate about making local NHS services the best we can. And one such example this year, as Hester just said, thank you, is that we used the information that Healthwatch had gathered, the intelligence from local people, and that gave us the insight that during COVID particularly, people were far more reliant and trusting of local sources of media, like local radio stations, local TV, and certain social media outlets. And so we use that information, and as a direct result, we now have a daily radio update in the Mansfield-Nashfield area, which I cover. We have a weekly slot on Notts TV, and we started to channel our messages based on the information and feedback that Healthwatch gave us through these local sources, because people said they were trusted places to go for information. So I want to say a massive thank you to everybody for everything you're doing. Your information, your voices really matter to us. We want to design services that make a real difference to your needs. And finally, I want to say a massive thank you to all members of the public for everything you've done so far during wave 1 and 2 in protecting local NHS services. Your efforts, your individual efforts and your collective efforts are hugely appreciated. So thank you very much, and well done everybody for all the hard work you're doing. Please keep going, and let's keep working, and let's keep talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you for joining us live. My apologies for thinking you were joining us by video.
No problem.
So next we have a video of Jonathan Berry from NHS England. He's the service lead for shared decision making. He's going to talk about the findings of 8 focus groups we ran about how best to prepare patients to enable them to make the right health decision for themselves.
So I am Jonathan Berry, and I work for NHS England and Improvement, and I'm the national lead for shared decision making within the organisation. And that role is about actually trying to ensure that shared decision making as part of our overall approaches to personalised care gets embedded into as many pathways and conversations between clinicians and patients as possible. In essence, shared decision making is a conversation between clinicians, so that's doctors, nurses, allied healthcare professionals, such as physiotherapists, etc., and patients, including their family members and care, etc., where patients want them involved, about all of the different options for treatment and care in a clinical treatment and care. And the idea is, and at its best, that you would have the clinicians bringing their knowledge of their clinical knowledge of the condition, and then about the evidence and the risks of a range of different treatment options, and you combine that with the patient's knowledge about their circumstances, their preferences and their values, and you put the two together, and that's where the sharing of the decision comes in. So it's not just about, medical things like evidence and clinical outcomes, it's also about what's important and what really matters to the person. If one of the evidence-based outcomes might actually be that it will impact really negatively on what's really important to the person, it's very important to have a conversation about alternatives. So in essence, it's about that conversation is about the benefits, the risks, all the reasonable alternatives, which include, where appropriate, doing nothing or doing nothing new. So that's the kind of conversation we want to see happening as much as possible across the country. So the work that we did with Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Healthwatch came about when we were doing some demonstrator activity across the Nottinghamshire ICS area, looking at ways in which we could get shared decision making embedded into a number of musculoskeletal pathways. So that was like things like the lower back, the shoulder and the knee, etc. And one of the things that became very clear to us as we were doing that work, and indeed other work as well, was that maybe we weren't hearing from some communities as to actually what would be shared decision making from their perspective. And those are communities, that traditionally live with economic deprivation and don't get their voices heard. We'd connected with Healthwatch previously in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire as part of the demonstrator work, because they'd been at our kick-off and launch events and kept them updated on progress. And we felt they were the ideal organisation to actually go out and do this kind of outreach work with those groups of people and communities that we were talking about. We asked Healthwatch to, in essence, speak to those communities about what shared decision making is, and also ask them from their perspective what good shared decision making might look like for them. What would be needed, if you like, for them to engage in shared decision-making conversations in the best possible way for them. So Healthwatch Judy did that, and they came up with a report, and that report basically had a number of recommendations in it. And I guess the ones that most resonated with us, really simple ones, like actually it's really helpful if people actually don't always look at the computer screen, look at you when you're trying to have complex conversations and make decisions about treatment and care. So it was really useful to get those kind of very practical reminders, but also in terms of a few strategic things that we needed to think about, there was something about needed to feel that they could be prepared in advance to have these kind of conversations, because suddenly to be in front of a clinician being asked to think about things like benefits and risks and alternatives was really daunting. So there needed to be some kind of preparation, some kind of thinking that people could do beforehand, and also an awareness that actually asking questions and having those kind of conversations was actually welcomed by the system, because often people felt that wasn't always welcomed for whatever reason. So that was one really important thing. And then the second really important thing that came out of the report was that people actually would found it really useful to have some kind of record of the decision that they could take away with them and share it with friends, family members, so that actually they could revisit that decision in the context of their everyday world and make sure that their support networks understood the decision and the reason for it and were able to contribute to it if necessary. So that was really helpful. So we've done two things. The first thing we've started to do is we've started to develop some guidance for the system, advice and guidance for the system, and some patient-facing information all about the importance of preparation for shared decision-making conversations. That's currently in development. So that came as a direct result of the report. And the second thing we're doing is we're working with the Professional Record Standard body to look at a standard for recording shared decision-making conversations. Part of good record keeping with regard to shared decision-making conversations is that people actually have something to take away with them in the way that the communities that Healthwatch engaged with suggested.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think that was very insightful about how our work has really tangibly made a difference. Okay, so next we have Gavin. Gavin is another one of our volunteers, and he talked to relatives and friends of residents living in care homes about what they need from care homes in terms of their information needs during the period that they can't visit their relatives or friends. This is our latest project, and we are currently in the process of writing up this report. So this is really up-to-date information that we've been working on over the last couple of weeks. And this report will be going to Notts County Council, amongst others, to inform them how to improve the communication out to relatives and friends prior to Christmas. So over to Gavin now.
Well, I guess I've worked for the last 25 years or so within the care industry. The latter 7 years as a quality monitoring officer with Nottingham City Council, inspecting care homes and care agencies. As part of those inspections, we would look very much at the practical elements of the record keeping rather than looking at the customer contact. But my background is in hospitality, where the customer is very much the key part of that particular background. And therefore, when I left working for the city when I retired, I looked at Healthwatch as a way of being able to look at the customer side of the care industry rather than the academic side of the care industry. So that's why I joined Healthwatch. From my point of view, I looked at interviewing half a dozen people by telephone calls to them about their experiences of visiting care homes during the pandemic. The response I got back was that one or two felt the care homes had done a good job, but the majority felt the care homes hadn't involved them at all, hadn't given them any information, and hadn't really been very receptive to any form of visits at all. They were very much arm's length type situations. One lady said that the care home had promised her a lot of things and hadn't delivered on any of the promises, and that information that they were sending out was very generic from the company point of view, not from the individual care home's point of view. And they felt that the report was very urgently required to help care homes have a more consistent approach to information. And they thought that the report should be published as soon as it can be published, because it was certainly very much needed.
So just to sum up this session, thank you very much to all our speakers who joined us live and by video, to Anne, David, Jonathan and Gavin. And I'm now going to hand over to Jane, who is leading our scrutiny section.
Thank you, Hester. So you've had a bit of a whistle-stop tour through a number of speakers and dimensions where we've tried to talk to you about our partnership working and the projects that we do which make a difference to local people. I just want to move on now to the third role, which is our scrutiny role. And in some ways, this is the most important role that we have, because it's only by being present at key strategic meetings and talking to key strategic people that we can make a difference by seeking the answers to the issues and concerns that we have. And making sure that the perspective of the patient or service user is part of discussions about how services are planned and delivered. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of how we do this. and then invite two of the people who represent us on other strategic boards to tell us a bit about their experiences of doing that and the difference that's made. So firstly, could I have my first slide, please? So just to explain what scrutiny is and how we understand it in our role. So we hold health and care providers and commissioners, so that's CCGs, hospital trusts, that's social care departments, public health. We hold them to account for listening to the public. And by that we mean, how well are they involving the public in shaping services in a meaningful way? How well are they using public feedback to improve services? And then there's a signposting dimension. Are they giving clear information about services that everyone can access? And how good are they at giving information on how to feedback or complain? Again, that everyone can access. And finally, how transparent are they? Do they genuinely share information about how they are performing? Information which may include what the public are saying about their services, because that's, as it were, the gold standard for transparency. Next slide, please. So where do we do our influencing? Where do we do our scrutiny role? Well, on this slide, you can see a number of strategic boards you may or may not be familiar with, which are in existence in our patch, which is Nottingham, Nottinghamshire and Bassetlaw included, where we have a seat. We sit at all the tables so that we are able to influence. I won't go through them one by one. You can see what they are, but it is a combination of the scrutiny and committees and health and wellbeing boards that sit within the local democratic structure of councils to some of the health bodies that are around the place. Have the next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you a few examples of some of the issues we've been raising since COVID started. And that has been, for example, that we're very concerned about the issue around partners, friends and family not being allowed to accompany patients to appointments, and encouraging our local trusts to work around those arrangements as much as they were allowed to within the national guidance. We're concerned about the lack of support for carers, especially those caring for people with dementia, while the support groups that might normally be there were not meeting. We talked to the CCG and said how important it was that local people were engaged with about any permanent changes that were made to the service, and highlighted the communities for whom changes such as virtual appointments might not work. And we were concerned that health scrutiny committees stopped meeting in the first parts of COVID, though we're very glad that those have now restarted. So those are a few of the issues we've raised. But just to give you a little bit more of a detailed insight, I'd like to invite two of our representatives to share with you their experiences. First of all, I'd like to introduce Ajanta Biswas, who is our Vice Chair, but also sits as a strategic volunteer for Healthwatch on both the County Council and the City Council Health Scrutiny Committees. Thank you, Ajanta.
Thank you, Jane. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Ajanta Biswas. My expertise is actually in the field of research. As Jane has already mentioned, I'm on the scrutiny committees, and I'm the scrutiny lead at Healthwatch Nottingham, Nottinghamshire. I also am the chair of Evidence and Insight subgroup. So, as previously Sarah Collis had mentioned, that scrutiny is our #1 role, and this is similar to any other health watches, where we champion patients' voice and try to bring that to the heart of service delivery and health and social care provisions. We are very grateful that the people that engage with us, patients that engage with health and social care, and graciously give their experiences and their time. But it is also very important to acknowledge to champion the voices of disengaged, engaged people. I coined this term of disengaged, engaged to actually mean that individuals who, for their own mental and physical health perhaps, or perhaps a fragile lifestyle, are not able to engage actively to impact and affect any change within health and social care provisions. However, health and social care provisions have a huge impact on them, and so inevitably they are engaging with health and social care very actively in receiving the care. As you have filled up the survey this beginning of this session and continue to fill up the survey, and thank you very much for that, we collected the last year's survey where the stakeholders confirmed to us that our strategic priority, which was being voice of seldom heard group and vulnerable group, is completely in line with the strategic priority for the local and regional health and social care. So we received this year information, and we were aware very much because we engage with seldom heard and vulnerable group that the primary care services for 4 categories of vulnerable people were changing because of the procurement which CCG has to routinely go through. So while this seems to be a standard and routine procurement, these were categories of very vulnerable people, such as individuals who are homeless, individuals who, because of substance misuse and complex health needs, are deemed at high risk, patients who are on release from prison or in probation hostels, or asylum seekers, were the category of patients who were facing change in their primary care provisions. Now, it is absolutely our duty as Healthwatch to scrutinize this procurement in order to ensure that the voice of the patients are heard by a meaningful engagement. As Rich Brady mentioned in Nottinghamshire ICP, that health and social care, the essence is working with people, and that's what we at Healthwatch Nottingham, Nottinghamshire aim to do. The second was to ensure that this category of patients receive the same service as they have been for the last 10 years. And finally, it was to ensure that this procurement doesn't amount to a service change in practical and in principle, which may impact downstream not only the local services such as accident and emergency or the local mental health services, but it have a huge impact in the individual's life. So we are doing this in 3 ways. We are doing this approach of scrutiny in the way of actually seeing the needs assessment, have the needs of this population of people being assessed, and that information being shared to the new service providers, and to see the equality and quality impact assessment that this service change does not lead in further health inequality, and any impact in quality has been mitigated. So we are working closely with CCG and moving forward with our scrutiny, with not only the population that has the patients that have been dispersed, but also the new service provisions. We do have Q&A sessions later on, so if you do have any questions on this, I'm happy to take it then. Thank you very much. And over to Helen. Thank you, Helen.
Janta. Yes, I'd like now to introduce Helen Miller, who is a strategic volunteer for Healthwatch, who sits on the Public and Patient Engagement Committee for Nottinghamshire CCGs.
Okay, thank you, Jane. And Nathan, could we have the first slide, please? Oh, well, never mind, I'll carry on. meeting and we offer feedback. We also review the engagement activity that the CCG have carried out, and we review how the feedback's being taken on board and the impact that it's had. Now, one of our key roles, where we probably spend quite a lot of our time, is on providing constructive challenge, and this can get quite lively. We don't always agree with the CCG plans, but we all agree that what we want to do is make things better for patients. And where we have some of our debates are more about the interpretation of what's actually happening on the ground, and we can differ on how we want to address things and what the priorities are, but we actually do have the same agenda. We want to make things better, and we want to provide assurance that citizens' views are taken into account across the health system. Next slide, please, Nathan. And I just want to give you an example of a work stream that I'm particularly involved with now, and that's called the NHS Recovery COVID Recovery Programme. So as you know, things had to change very quickly when COVID came along, particularly how people access services. Some of those things have worked very well. Some have not worked very well, or not worked very well for some groups. So whilst I'm engaged with all the stories of inequality that have come out of here and through this work, I will say my particular interest tends to be in the needs of the elderly, their carers, and in particular the new hospital discharge process that was introduced called Discharge to Assess, which Healthwatch England and the Red Cross did a great paper on, which was published probably a couple of months ago now. And whilst that isn't focused on Nottinghamshire in particular, it's across the whole of England, the issues that they raise ring true from the many discussions I've had, certainly with the elderly and my own GP practice. So one of my focuses, and this is my pitch for it, is keeping the profile of the hospital discharge work raised through the recovery programme. So in more general terms, what's this all about? Well, the CCG over summer did a massive piece of research, a massive research exercise. They did research with the local population, a representative sample of over 2,000 people, that's a lot. They did focus groups and interviews. They sought the views through the voluntary sector of over 100 organisations representing the most vulnerable and marginalised communities. And they did a desktop review of national and other research as well, just to make sure that they weren't missing any tricks. So that came out at the end of summer, early autumn, and then the next stage is to review all that work, and it's a lot to review. And the PPEC and the CCG are very much doing this together. Now, our objective is to improve access to healthcare services. We want to make sure that what we do as a next step is patient-centred, that we really embed partnership working, get different parts of the NHS working together, and that we achieve greatly improved equitable outcomes for patients. Now, you can't do all of this in a 2-hour monthly meeting, so we formed a separate task and finish group. And this is kind of where we are now. We're just kind of on the brink of recommending what we would like the CCG to do. And I would say that the CCG and PPEC are really working together to face into the issues and work out how to resolve them. This isn't a case of they present to us, we give feedback, and some of it gets picked up and some of it doesn't. This is really working together. The CCG have been very supportive. They attend every meeting and they really help us sort out sometimes our own thinking, and certainly all the writing up, signposting us to where there are national standards in place. We don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel to make things better, but just make sure that we're doing what we should be doing. So our action plan is in development now. We're at the point of setting our strategic objectives, and the sorts of things would be like improving hospital discharge process. We've identified the initiatives, so the work to be done, the areas that we want the CCG to look at. We then want to identify the CCG department lead and put some names down to those, and also the timescales in which we want the work to be done. And our plan is to present to the governing body in early January. We're looking for some quick wins, and we're also looking to influence vaccination communications. So hopefully, as we get into the new year, you might see some of our impact on that. And then the last stage of the process will be to hold the CCG and other parts of the NHS to account to make sure that they deliver on those actions that we've agreed. Thank you very much for listening. I now hand back to Jane.
Thank you very much, Helen, and thank you for the work you do for us. Sorry, I'm being dazzled by the slides moving. What I want to say is we know that we're running a bit over time, so we're going to do our best to catch up, but we have one more slot now from before the break. Thank you for bearing with our very busy agenda, and we're throwing lots of information at you, but we wanted to give you a really good view of the range and diversity of activities that we are involved in as an organisation. It now gives me great pleasure to welcome Melanie Brooks to come and talk to us. Melanie Brooks is Director of Adult Social Care at the County Council, and she's agreed to come and say a few words about Healthwatch for us now. I'm hoping you're there, Melanie.
Yes, hello Jane, I'm here.
Hello Melanie, thank you. Couldn't see you.
Hi, nice to see you. And thank you everybody, it's nice to see you all. And what a different AGM this is to last year when we had a lovely buffet and we're talking to each other in little groups and filling out surveys and having lots of fun. So now I'm speaking to a room of people all on mute. So a very different experience. As well as Director of Adult Social Care, I'm also responsible for the county's public health team. So I'm Director for Adult Social Care and Public Health. And as well as us being responsible for individual needs, so people that you'll be familiar who need social care or have specific health needs, we also have a role in system leadership and tackling health inequalities with our partners through population health planning. So with this regard, Healthwatch are an important partner to us in a number of ways. And I think particularly Healthwatch has been really important and a particular asset through the pandemic. I mean, so for example, since March, we've been in emergency planning mode. And pretty much other than the odd week of respite in the summer, our response on COVID has just preoccupied us in the last 7 months. So the sorts of things that we would usually do to keep on track, such as listening to people, meeting with partners, co-producing, having time to consult, just hasn't been possible. It's not been unusual to have some guidance on a Friday that we have to introduce on a Monday, or have a week to turn around a huge departmental plan up to government. So that's sort of been the nature of it. Now, Healthwatch has been really crucial to me through that time as a critical friend. So as well as being able to offer some independent assurance, I think Healthwatch have been really flexible in meeting me, often at very short notice, to talk through a plan and to just give a little bit of a feedback about how we have or haven't had people at the heart of what we're doing, and to share some of their views. So I think that's been a really important role through the last few months. What I really value, though, about Healthwatch is the specific research work that's been undertaken for us. So, for example, the research that's been mentioned earlier about people's experience of COVID and how access to services has been hindered has really helped us, both as an integrated care system and as a county council, start to put in place real change. So in the county council, we've used that work to help us understand how we can get digital devices and internet connection out to people who are digitally excluded, who don't have access to those things in their daily lives in order to access services. So it's brought about that real change. Another example has been about the work that Healthwatch supported us, I think it was earlier in the year or late last year, I can't remember now because of COVID, but in terms of understanding people's experiences of safeguarding and what it's been like to have gone through that and receiving support. And we've had a huge piece of improvement work, both within our own multi-agency safeguarding hub and with the Adult Safeguarding Board, learning from the feedback that Healthwatch enabled us to receive. So that's been really important. And you've heard today briefly from a volunteer who's undertaken the work, but it was also mentioned the most important bit of work for us is trying to understand the views from people who have their loved ones at the moment in care homes. Because as many of you will know, because of infection control and the fact that Nottinghamshire has really had high rates of COVID transmission, access to people in care homes and supported living has been really difficult this year. And we're not really clear how well family and family carers and loved ones have been communicated with and supported. So I'm really excited to get that report quite soon, so I can think about how I support the social care providers to communicate better with people. So gathering those experiences, making sense of them, and then Healthwatch volunteers, whether that's Jane or Sarah, and people that are employed by Healthwatch, having that open conversation with me in a very honest way about the feedback, what that might mean, and how we can start to shape things locally has been really important. I think at times people won't feel safe talking to us directly, so although as a local authority, both through public health and adult social care, we do have a duty to collect views, and we do that. I think it's really enhanced by Healthwatch supporting us to hear people maybe who are seldom heard or who feel too anxious to be honest with us directly because of the feeling of safe speaking to somebody outside of the organisation. So that bit's been really important, and I'm really hopeful that kind of research work will really grow, particularly as we learn to recover from COVID and start getting back to some normality next year. So I really want to end by saying thank you to everybody in Healthwatch, and the volunteers particularly. I think often what you do behind the scenes can get overlooked, and I don't think any of us could get by without you. So thank you very much for that support. And hopefully, you can recognise from some of the speakers and myself today the really important role that you've had in working with us to make things better for people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Melanie. That was really fantastic to hear. Thank you. So, as we draw towards our well-deserved break, I just have one more set of thoughts to share with you. As you can tell, this afternoon we've shared with you our passion for making a difference to the services that local people receive, and shared some of the successes and the impacts we've had. Could I have a slide, please? As Lynn has pointed out, Healthwatch does have a unique view across the whole system. And I guess this slide really summarises what it is we try to do. That as a team, a whole team of staff members, trustees and volunteers, we aim to reach down to the community, down as in, or up from the communities, perhaps a better way of saying it. We aim to have a very wide reach to particularly parts of the community that other engagement methods do not pick up on, people who don't get heard, and to elevate that voice across a wider sphere of influence as we possibly can in communities, locally, regionally, and even nationally, as you would have heard from Jonathan Berry's talk about the work we did for NHS England. With the channels of influence that we have are those that I referenced earlier on, but really most importantly is our community mission, that we reach out to communities and prioritise those who face health inequalities, the vulnerable, the disengaged and the seldom heard. So that is our mission on a page, as it were. But like all organisations, we do have challenges. We cover a very large geographical patch of a population of about 1 million people across a huge range of health and care services. We are a very small team. There's just 11 members of staff we have at the moment, and that is of course extended with our trustees and our volunteers. But it does mean that there are bound to be important issues that we just don't get to hear about. And we also know that we don't reach all the communities or hear about all the issues that we need to. And we know that we need to get better at doing that. And we also know we could be better at feeding back to the communities we represent the impact that they have had by sharing their views and experiences with us. And we do recognise that's a crucial part of what we do, that feedback loop, so that they feel encouraged and empowered to continue to raise their voice. So we need your help. There are a few ways in which you can help us to carry out our remit better and in a more inclusive way. If you are from a local community, you could work in partnership with us or become a Healthwatch hub, which would help us to reach more vulnerable people. If you are a health or social care organisation, You can share your organisational priorities and plans and challenges with us so that we can align our work where appropriate to support you. Whoever you are, you can share your views on how we can do this better. And if you would like to volunteer for Healthwatch, there are a wide range of volunteering opportunities and roles. And after the break, Deb Morton, our volunteer manager, and a few of our current volunteers will tell you a bit more about that. So some things for you to think about. Just a reminder before we break that we're going to have a Q&A session after the break. If you've got any questions, could you please start to put them in the chat box so that we can bring those together and get them answered as efficiently as possible. We ask that you don't close the meeting down during this break, but if you could just leave it on, turn your microphone and camera off, go and get yourselves a well-deserved drink, have a break, stretch your legs, and we look forward to seeing you in 5 minutes. Goodbye.
Okay, are we all back together then? Are we ready to go again? Welcome everybody to the second half of this event. I hope you have had a couple of minutes at least for a break, but thank you for participating. So my name is Deb Morton and I'm the volunteer manager here at Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. So you've heard today about some of the work we've done and how volunteers have been and are involved. That's not the whole story. We currently have 45 active volunteers. They're involved in a variety of different things and we rely on their passion, their commitment and their skills to help us make the difference that we do. Volunteer contributions include sharing our surveys with a few neighbours, leading on projects, representing us at strategic meetings, carrying out telephone interviews, distributing our material around the city and county, and being part of our hub network, where they link us with the groups they are involved in. We appreciate every little thing that they do and the time that they give to this organisation. So let's hear from a few of them now about what it means to be a volunteer with Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. So this is a video for you.
What happened was I was sort of looking for a volunteering opportunity with university. I was in my second year and I do a biology subject. So I wanted something that would sort of build on what I already knew without sort of repeating what I knew from university. So I was looking for something in public health. I found out about the evidence and insight volunteering and it was like perfect for me. Like it was exactly what I was looking for. It was a lot of data and it was a lot of just like general bits with that sort of thing. So that was what attracted me towards it. But the first thing I did was Healthwatch, was with Fashion of the Month, and it just sent me all the data. But yeah, it was quite a good introduction into it, and it kind of got, for me, that got the idea of what Healthwatch actually was. It kind of helped to understand like the way they collect data and the way that they use it. And then after that, this was the like bigger project that I did, was I did the literature review for the CAMS transitions into adult mental health, and that was really, really interesting actually, especially because it wasn't anything to do with my background from uni and stuff. So it's quite interesting looking at other areas of but yeah, that was a really good opportunity actually. It was really interesting. So for me, I was really looking for something, not only data analytics, but I was looking for something that was a bit more like researchy based, because ideally I'd like to get onto some sort of postgraduate program and with public health, and they all ask for research experience. And it's given me a lot to talk about in the way of CVs and stuff. So it's helped me out massively in that sense. And it's also managed to get me a really good idea of like career pathways that I'd be interested in, which has been really, really useful, because it's quite hard to get experience with stuff like this if you are an undergraduate. So it's helped me massively in quite a few different senses. And on top of that, it was a really nice task. And having the weekly meetings as well was quite good for the reassurance, and it was really quite good for keeping me on track. And it was also quite good in it. I think if you are a student volunteering, you don't always get that, like you don't really know how things work in a more professional setting. Like you're very used to being left to doing stuff completely on your own, not getting feedback till the end. So it was quite nice actually seeing how things sort of work outside of academics. So it's been quite useful as well. But it's quite good if you can kind of dip in and out. So there is that other use as well, that it's not a massive commitment. So if you are looking for something sort of on the side or something to sort of keep you going alongside your other like main things, it's a really good opportunity for people like that, because it's quite hard again to find those things that don't require long-term commitment. It's been really useful for that. Overall, I just feel really positively towards it. It's just been a really good experience. Like I really like volunteering with Healthwatch.
I often felt that we missed the customer voice within the care homes. I was looking for that type of opportunity. Now, clearly, face contact was something I was looking forward to going into care homes to do, and that's not been possible at the moment. But by continuing with telephone conversations and telephone interviews has actually helped me rejig my interview styles, I guess. I used to do interviewing quite a lot during my career. And I enjoyed that particular process, and talking to some of the older people I've spoken to has really been very enlightening, and shows that people especially during times. I miss that concept of talking to totally independent people who haven't got any access to grind. They're not part of a care home. They're not part of the NHS. They are totally independent, and they would open up to us tremendously. So from a volunteer point of view, it's given me a lot of insight into the way older people work, older people feel, and the way that they do enjoy talking about issues. And I've got some very, very valid points to make. And it's really been quite interesting to do that, the team at Healthwatch. We've been made to feel part of the Healthwatch team by being involved in meetings and being able to contribute to meetings via these virtual formats. And as thus, I haven't felt that we've missed anything by not having face-to-face contact. And by that, valuing us and what we can offer. So by attending some of the team meetings, some of the briefing, has made me feel quite a valued part of the Healthwatch organisation.
And I do have a bit of a mantra, actually, which I do trot out for any volunteering work, right? Can I make a difference? Is it a good use of my time? Do I enjoy it? Do I feel valued? Do I feel respected? So I had this thing that volunteers are we're not all fulfilling obligations for the job centre, right? A lot of us are very experienced people with a lot of expertise, which we want to share with worthwhile organisations for the sake of community and society. I have had fantastic opportunities in my life, and I want to be able to be useful for the rest of my life and to contribute to my community and to my society. For me, I think perhaps the biggest word for me is community. That is what it's all about. But I think there's going to be a huge number, a wealth of talent to tap into, of fantastic people who have been furloughed but are allowed to do voluntary work, right? Or who have been laid off but need to keep their skills honed. When all of this is over, whether it's March, these people will have honed their skills, kept their expertise and their skills up to date, and then we'll be able to move on. And I think, with Healthwatch itself, I think you're going to be, because there are some very interesting, high-level, demanding posts.
Hello, my name's Chester, and I was an evidence and insight volunteer at Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. I began volunteering at Healthwatch in 2018, so that was at the start of my second year at university. And since then, I've been really lucky to be involved with 3 really interesting projects. So the first is the GP Experiences project, which involved analysing lots and lots of experiences related to GP practices. The second was Tiny Talk, which looked at children and young people's experiences at their GP and dentist. And the third was Homelessness and Barriers to Primary Healthcare, for which I conducted a literature review, helped design and carry out questionnaires, and wrote up the findings. So altogether, the skills that I developed and put into practice as an evidence and insight volunteer have been really, really helpful for me with my career. So since graduating earlier this year, I have become a researcher at the Directory of Social Change in Liverpool. The Directory of Social Change is a charity that helps other charities to ultimately help their beneficiaries. And the experiences that I had as an evidence and insight volunteer not only really helped me to actually get this role, because it gave me lots and lots of really relevant examples to draw upon in my interview, but has also been really helpful as I've been undertaking the responsibilities in my role. So given that I had analysed lots of data and written 3 reports with recommendations at Healthwatch, I was given the responsibility of being the lead author on 2 upcoming reports, which involves similarly analysing data from charities. So due to quite a tight publication schedule and having to learn lots and lots about a new sector in a short space of time, this was really quite challenging, but I think my experience at Healthwatch really well prepared me for this and enabled me to produce 2 drafts that have been really well received. So yeah, thank you Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire.
Wow, how absolutely awesome was that? Well done, guys. Okay, so as a key part of our new strategy to involve volunteers in every aspect of what we do, and this is something that we'll be working on over the next 3 years, we're developing some new roles alongside our existing ones, and we'll be rolling these out over the coming months. If you or anyone you know would like to find out more, please look on our website at the volunteer page or contact me directly. My contact details are on the page as well. Thank you. So I'll now hand over to Mark Doughty, our Projects and Insight Officer, who is going to present the results of the mini survey you've been completing today. Over to you, Mark.
Right. Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Deb, for handing over to me. My name is Mark Doughty, and I am our Projects and Insight Officer. As an organisation, we collect data and intelligence from a variety of sources, and it's my job to make sense of it all. Thank you for completing our survey, which is really important to us, as the findings from this would inform and help us to prioritise what we need to focus on in the coming year. It also provides us with the accountability that we are targeting the right communities. I've just taken a cut of the survey so far, and at that point we had received 35 responses. The results so far indicate that the top 5 groups you feel we should be focusing on next year are people with a mental illness at 43%, young people under 25 at 37%, Black, Asian and minority ethnic 29%, carers 23%, and homeless 23%. In addition, you feel that the key issues which have been highlighted due to the pandemic, include the right information for people, representation and finance, impact on informal carers and future support models, mental health, which was mentioned by a lot of our contributors, loss of income, access to services, including regular appointments, food poverty and food insecurity, pharmacy repeat prescriptions, which was stopped at the time when it was necessary, and people felt that they were not supported by local government, councils or government. There are several more themes which I will put into a summary and send out to you. I hope that you have found this information useful, and I'd now like to hand you back to Sarah Collis.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everybody. Thank you for that. It's one of those things whenever we get together as a board and we hear the work that's being done by our team and volunteers, it's always overwhelming. And I think you'll all agree with me this afternoon that you've heard many perspectives of the work that we've been doing. So this is an opportunity now for any questions that you might have. If you've been putting them in the chat, Matthew from our board has been scanning any questions. I'm going to be joined by Kinsey, Jane, Ajanta, who's one of our board members and vice chair, as we met before, and Hester and Deb to answer any of your questions. So Matthew, do we have any questions?
Hi there, Sarah. Yes, we've had a question regarding Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire communicating with the public and patients, for example, with the 3 CVSs in Nottinghamshire. So a question to the panel: how can Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire ensure it continues to connect with the whole of the community going forward?
Great question. I'm going to ask Kinsey if she can answer that one for us, our new partnerships manager.
Thank you, Sarah. And fantastic question, and I'm glad that it came up today. And just for the benefit of everybody, I've been here 2 months, and maybe 2 months and 2 days, and connecting with the in the county and meeting colleagues in the county, and particularly through the CVSs, is one of my absolute #1 priority. I am pleased to say that I'll be meeting 2 colleagues from the 2 CVNs from the county tomorrow. And I have a plan to hopefully making further connections with the rest of them. So please, and my email address is in the chat box. If Nathan can kindly put it, please be in touch with me, because I will be absolutely delighted to talk to you and to understand how we can connect with the communities you are supporting in the county, so that we can inform ourselves that we are reaching from all corners of our community. And thank you for that great question.
Thanks, Kinsey. Matthew, any other questions from our audience today?
Yep, so another question is, how can Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire mould to adapt and continue working in the community in a socially distanced world?
Wow, that's the question I think everybody's wrestling with at the moment, isn't it, in terms of how do we make those connections? I'm going to ask Kinsey again, and maybe Jane, to give us some thoughts on that.
Sorry.
Kinsey? There you go.
Sorry, I was waiting for Jane. I'm sorry. You got Jane first. Please do.
So very good question, and we have had to change our practice and be creative in how we engage and reach out to people since the pandemic began. Like all organisations, it's been a real challenge. One of our prime ways of doing things is that we actually go out to communities where they are and talk to them where they are, rather than expect them to have to contact us in a different way. So we've been trying different things is the answer, and we'll have to continue to do that. So we managed to do a survey in May time and reached over 400 people in a period of 2 weeks through all our connections, through using our volunteers, the community groups within which we have links, them contacting other people. And we did do a piece of work and got a lot of views back, which you heard about earlier, digitally. Now we know that we're not going to have reached everybody that way, and we know that still there's some people who still will not reach digitally, because that's well established. But we've done in first instance, we have done what we could. We've tried to be creative in other ways. We've tried working with food banks. We've tried reaching out in a number of ways, and we will continue to do that. Hester may be able to come in a little bit more on that, or Kinsey, I would suggest.
I think all I can say really, it's a big challenge, and because we've suddenly moved it overnight from a face-to-face world into a virtual world, and that has inevitably excluded the most vulnerable section of our communities. And it will be true to say that we are not reaching everybody, and we're not reaching a lot of people, and it is a challenge, and we are aware of it. But we are aware that at least one or two of our partners are actually doing digital training for community members and community groups. So some organizations are organizing training around Zoom and Teams to include people just with sort of a basic use of the technology. And so we really would like to hear more organizations who are doing that. And however we can support the organizations in the community, that we will be happy to hear from any thoughts and particularly the community leaders and community workers. You are our ears and eyes. We are, as Jane said, it's 11 of us and half of us are part-time, and so unfortunately we cannot be everywhere where we would like to. So please do let us know where you can identify issues or key issues that collectively impacting a particular cohort of community, because those are most vulnerable. One is Healthwatch's role to make sure that we are aware of them and that we champion their voice.
So just to add finally, as Kinsey touched on, partnership working is key to this, and that is part of obviously Kinsey's role and our whole role as a team to support her in making those connections. We did reach out to food banks in the summer. There's more work to do with establishing better partnerships with them and being able to reach people through their food parcels. But we won't be in the COVID pandemic forever, and we won't be in lockdown forever. So, we look to the future and we look to carrying on our work in the way we have been digitally and growing our connections and partnerships and links to reach more and more people. But thank you for the question. And, if you do have any creative suggestions also for us, please feel free to let us know.
Yeah, that's absolutely, going to be, it is our main priority is looking at new and innovative ways to reach our communities. So yeah, we're open to suggestions, we're open to partnerships, because this is the problem everybody's facing at the moment, is making sure that we are reaching people and getting their voices heard. I think we've done really well. I think the survey back in May was a real testament to those connections that we've got. I think 400 people in 2 weeks was pretty amazing. But we've got a long way to go, like everybody else. So good question, and I hope it really helps us make more connections going forward. Any other questions there, Matthew?
One more question, just to be aware of time. How has Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire been able to remain accountable to the work and plans scheduled for 2020 despite the pandemic?
Right then, I'm going to ask Jane to answer that, and then I'll probably jump in as well as usual. You're on mute, Jane. I thought I'd not say those words in this event.
To apologise. Could you repeat the question, please, Matthew?
Of course I can. So it's about our plans that we had for 2020 before the pandemic turned up. How has Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire been able to continue plans for 2020 despite the obstacle of COVID-19?
Right. Yes, thank you. So I think what we've done is we've continued with some things, but we've put other things on pause because it became important for us to focus on COVID. That became overwhelmingly the priority for everyone working in health and care and for the public. That sort of swept everything else aside in a sense. So some of the things that we might have done, we've either done a little later in the year or we might do next year, but we have to be really agile and responsive to making sure that we're addressing the issues of the moment and not stick rigidly to a plan that we already had in place. One of the things that we do is a question of the month survey, and we tend to do one of these actually every quarter, which is not quite as the name says on the packet, but it has a very good branding. And that question of the month survey, we will only decide shortly before each quarter because it's so important that it's immediately relevant and is responding to a current issue. So that was the umbrella on which we did our COVID work. So yeah, I think that's the main response I would say, is that we keep reassessing our priorities. We keep reassessing what's the most important thing for us to be doing right now. And the other thing that we've really strengthened over the last few months is our scrutiny role. So doing more of really holding the system to account on issues that are coming up all the time. And there are many and have been many of those over the last few months. So not just doing work, but doing that real scrutiny piece as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Yeah, I think, I'm incredibly proud of the work that the whole team, and I mean, the whole team is our staff team, obviously, but our volunteers and our trustees working together throughout the last months of this year under really difficult circumstances. We've really used the time wisely internally to ensure that our programme of work and our strategy is right, and we've really challenged ourselves on that. I think we have a very robust structure, which is fantastic. We've worked together with both local authorities during this time to ensure that we've aligned our contracts with them, which is really important. But most importantly, that we are responsive to the issues that are coming up. You will heard from Anna earlier, who was talking about the Maternity Partnership, which is a constant that we've been working through and very important at this time. And that the work that we're doing to build partnerships is where we will find the issues that we need to look at closer. But as COVID hopefully now moves into this next phase, I think we're going to all be very alive to the issues of how services are restored and how people are starting to re-access healthcare. We have particular concerns, obviously, about people experiencing cancer across our area, where services were interrupted, and the very many people that weren't attending GPs and primary care. So, these are the things that we're going to be looking at as we enter into the next year. So I think with the time as it is, I think it's probably time for me to wrap up. Thank you so much for your questions. It's really fantastic that so many people have joined us this afternoon. It's one of those things where we put this event on not quite knowing how many people would join, and I think we've been overwhelmed by the numbers. As Melanie said earlier in her conversation with us that last time we were in Mansfield, I think it was, and it was starting to snow outside when we were having this event. It was cold and damp, but today we're actually sitting in our own homes, hopefully a lot warmer. But yes, I think we've had a fantastic turnout. We are going to be hosting our annual general meeting part of this afternoon after this session. So if you do want to stay for that, you're very welcome to. It is the business section, so it's very short. So don't leave this call at the end of it. We'd like you to stay on and join us if you will do. Just wanted to sort of, first of all, thank our speakers for this afternoon. Rich Brady, who unfortunately had to leave us, Leslie McDonald, Anne Whitfield, one of our volunteers, David Ainsworth, thank you, Jonathan Berry from NHS England, Gavin Shelley, and Janta Biswas from our board, and Melanie Brooks finally. Thank you so much for the time that you've taken to really put into real terms the work that we do and to give people a real flavour of the work we've done. And thank you to our volunteers in the final section who made those incredible videos. That was really helpful. I'd like to thank Matthew, who's you might be able to see on the call now, who's a member of our board, who's been looking after some of the tech along with Nathan. This online event's been a first for us and one which has taken a lot of time and energy to produce. We've had a lot of glitches, but that's to be taken, I think, in this day and age, but we've managed to get through, and I hope you found this really informative. The staff team have really pulled this together in a fantastic way, and I want to say a special thank you to Kinsey, who has led on this particular event. Again, being quite relatively new to the organisation, she's really grasped this event and brought that together. So thank you to her, and to Nathan, who's our communications lead, for the support that's been happening behind the scenes. I want to say a special thank you to the team who've been working so hard to make today a success, and an extra special thank you to the volunteers who give so generously of their time, and without whom we just couldn't achieve what we do. We have such a massive remit, and for a small team, and I mean small team even with our volunteers, we're still small considering the level and depth and breadth of work that we have to do. So thank you to them. And finally, I want to thank you all for attending this afternoon. I hope you've found it both informative and enjoyable, and that you continue to engage with us throughout the year ahead. This week, we've had the fantastic news that the first people in the world outside of the clinical trials have starting to receive the COVID-19 vaccine here in the UK. Whilst that gives us enormous hope for the future, the work to restore services and to minimise the impact of COVID continues. Thank you to everyone who is contributing to the efforts to ensure that people across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire receive the care they deserve, and I wish you all a very safe and joyful end to 2020. Thank you, everybody. So if you're wishing to stay for our AGM, don't leave this call, just turn off your camera and mute yourself for a while, and we'll be back at 4:30 when we'll be doing the business part of the meeting. So thank you, everybody, and take care. I can't say safe journey home because I think most of you are already there, and we look forward to continuing to support, represent, and empower you to have a voice through us at Healthwatch Nottingham, Nottinghamshire in 2021. Thank you, everybody, and see you soon.
Emma, I'd advise you to turn your mic off.
It's now 4:30, so I think we can now start the AGM element of this afternoon. Can I ask the trustees to turn their cameras on, please, and to remain mute while they're not speaking, so that everybody can see who the trustees are? Hello, lovely to see faces and not just circles with initials in. And thank you to everybody who's stayed for the AGM. You know, it really means a lot to us that you're interested in the business of the board, so thank you. I think we've got Janta with us, we've got Sue Tribe with us, and Lucy Cooper, I think.
Yep, can't unlock.
From the CCG, nice to have you join us. Great, so lovely. I'm going to get going as it's been a long afternoon, one that I think was really enjoyable, and hopefully this bit won't feel too dry after the amazing stories we've heard from some of our volunteers and some of the people that we're working with. This is the business part of the annual general meeting, which I'd like to invite you to welcome you all to. We've got some apologies, I believe. Kerry Pickavert, who's our business manager, who's also our confidential secretary, will be taking minutes of the meeting. Could you tell us any of the apologies, please, Kerry?
Yes, we have apologies from Phil Thomas. And no others, as far as I'm aware.
I think I have an apology from Eddie Dandy, who's on our board.
I believe Eddie's joined us.
Has he joined us? Okay. Can't see. That's the problem with Teams. You can't see everybody, can you? So it's you sort of work out who all the initials are.
Yeah, Eddie is on the call.
Lovely. Welcome, Eddie. So first of all, I'm going to go through the business of the meeting as usual. We've sent out minutes of the previous AGM and they are available on our website. So just from those that were there, the trustees particularly, if we can see if the minutes were accurate, if there's any alterations that need to be made. Lucy, you've got your hand up? Down again.
Yeah, no, just to say I can't, unfortunately my webcam isn't working. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you.
I was there and I propose support the minutes. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. There's just a few matters arising from the minutes from last year. We were at that point looking to appoint a new vice chair, which we did, and the janitor who is sitting here today is the new vice chair. That was done. We were looking to see how the local authorities wanted us to report to them, both city and county local authorities who we have contracts with to deliver the functions of Healthwatch. Jane did confirm that reporting structure with them, so I can confirm that. And an update was given to our November board last year. And the admin team were asked to create a register of debtors for our commissioned work, which I believe was done. They were the only matters arising. So I'm going to thank you for that. So we'll accept the minutes of the last meeting for the record. Yes, everybody? Thank you.
Yeah.
I am just going to do a quick overview of our annual report. It is available on our website. We have two reports that we present. One is our public, well, they're both public documents. One is the annual report, which joins a stable of annual reports from health watchers across the country. And we also have the trustees report, which is attached to our annual accounts, both of which are public documents, which are filed with the Charity Commission and the Companies House. So widely available for people to see. But I did want to just highlight some of the things from the year 2019-20. Obviously, when we look at an AGM, it's always retrospective. Whilst this afternoon we've very much been talking about the work that we do currently and the challenges that we face currently, but this portion of the meeting is very much looking backwards at the year before. So Kerry, can you share those brief slides that I sent through? Thanks, Kerry. So we're just brilliant on the slideshow. Just go to slideshow at the top, Kerry, that'd be great. And then from the beginning, there we go. So this is just a shortened version of our annual report, which you can find on our website. Next slide, please, Kerry. Just the highlights, really. Back in 2019-20, we had 71 volunteers working for us and we employed 13 staff. And I think we achieved huge amounts of things with £321,000 from both our local authorities. And, you know, in that sense, the amount of work that we are prescribed to deliver across the entire health and social care economy, from birth to death, every type of community you can imagine. I think we do amazing work for what is a very limited budget. With that, we managed to share 182 people's stories they shared with us, and over 6,500 people received advice and information from us on services. We had over 16,000 people visited our website, and over 81,000 interactions through social media. These are things that COVID has absolutely brought into sharp focus, and I can see that those figures hopefully will improve next year as well. And I think we published 19 reports in that year. That's more than one a month, with a total of 54 recommendations. And I think it's really important to highlight that when Healthwatch does a report, when we do an investigation or we take on to engage with people on behalf of others and we write a report, a condition of the work us undertaking that work is that when we give recommendations, the recipients of that report need to be able to tell us what they're going to do with those recommendations, and we do follow up on that. So I think 19 reports in that year, as well as everything else that we do, I think was a really strong achievement. And during this current year, we know already that we've managed to write a number of reports in spite of the challenges of COVID. So really good highlight there for that year. Next slide, please, Karen. So this is just one example of how we made a difference last year. We mentioned in the afternoon session about our question of the month, which is the way that we talk to people generally. There's a topic picked every month that we ask a general question about. And in July and September last year, we looked at the issue of people accessing GP services. So in that particular month, we found that over a third of people that we spoke to in the county and over half of those we spoke to in the city said that the GP booking system didn't work for them. With over half of the people who said the booking system didn't work, they said that this was because they couldn't get through on the phone, and that having to wait too long for an appointment affected over 60% of people in the county and 47 people in the city. We were able to share that information with our primary care colleagues, and I think it really did highlight some of the issues that many different types of people are finding with access to GP appointments, but it also had started a really helpful conversation with primary care to look at how things could be improved, where they were putting in new innovative solutions, and particularly how now, in light of COVID, appointment systems were being improved and information that was being given by primary care was also improved as a result of this particular piece of work. So that's just one example. So we do one of those several times a year. I just thought I'd highlight that one. Next slide, please, Kerry. So some of you will be familiar with the long-term plan, which is the NHS plan for health over the next 10 years. And there was a campaign nationally that health watchers across the country got involved in to consult on the long-term plan and to provide information back to NHS England. Could you, next slide, Kerry? This was a campaign that was called #What Would You Do? These are some of the highlights on it. We worked in partnership with our colleagues in South Yorkshire and Bassetlaw Health Watchers, in Bassetlaw, to ensure that we really reached into communities to ask their opinion on the long-term plan. And as a result, we met with more than, this is us collectively as Healthwatch, and this is where I think we have real impact as a collective of organisations, was that more than 40,000 people shared their views nationally with us. Our networks held over 500 focus groups reaching different communities across England, and Healthwatch itself attended almost 1,000 community events to ask people questions about the long-term plan. And I'm very proud to report that the work that we did in partnership with our South Yorkshire and Bassetlaw colleagues actually won an award last year at the Healthwatch conference, and we received the award for outstanding achievement in 2019. I think it really demonstrates that, Healthwatch Nottingham and Nottinghamshire has incredible reach in lots of ways, but when we work together with other health watchers, our expertise was brought to that particular endeavour, and working with colleagues, it was really fantastic to receive that award, and an accolade really for the people of Nottingham and Nottinghamshire up in Bassetlaw who really contributed to that campaign and really brought their voices to to the story that needed to be said to NHS England. Next slide, please, Kerry. And lastly, I just wanted to highlight again the role of volunteers. We can't do what we do without volunteers at Healthwatch. It would be impossible. And it's really a central tenet of ours, and particularly within our new strategy, that we engage with people as volunteers for our organisation in so many different ways. This afternoon we heard from many of our volunteers giving us different insight into some of their motivations, why they wanted to join us and the work, the benefit that they've received. But whatever they get back, we know that we're getting a huge amount of skill, talent, energy and commitment. And so this last year that this annual report is about, our volunteers raised awareness of the work we do at our events across community and with health and care services. They collected live experiences about maternity services. They visited services to make sure they were providing people with the right support. They helped people they helped us with our day-to-day running. I think we heard this afternoon from one of our volunteers who very much got involved in our evidence and insight and brought his skill and talent to writing reports for us. And our volunteers listened to people's experiences to help us know which areas we needed to focus on. This year going forward, volunteers are even more important to us, and we aim to recruit widely from the communities across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, and to ensure that the experience that our volunteers have is something that they value and that they can really see the difference that they've made to the lives of people across our county and city, and that the difference their efforts make in elevating people's voices is really, a fantastic motivation for everybody. Thank you, Kerry. I think that's the end of the slides. Thank you. So that's just an overview, and if you want to read the full report, you can do so on our website. Please do so. It's got a bit more information in it than that. I think the next bit of our agenda is to turn to Ian Blair, who's our treasurer, who joined us last year to talk about our finances, which are the very important oil that keeps us going, Ian. So I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Hopefully my microphone's working. Can I just say that this is for approval by the trustees, and I don't intend in 5 minutes to actually go into much detail, but it's really a quick whistle-stop tour of the key points. They've already been sent out to the trustees, but they are on our website for delegates or members of the public to actually view if they wish. Just to say that we've received a clear report from our independent examiners, Community Accounting Plus, and their certificate is in the pack of documents on page 6. It's done in a very formulaic way, but that is what they are required to do by the accounting principles. Also, apologies for anyone who reads the document. They are not done in a management accounting simplified version. They're done in a format for probity and governance, and they have to be set out in certain ways, which may seem a bit difficult to actually read. I think if I could say two things about the position as a result of the documents. We are in a reasonably sound financial position, particularly after gaining the 3-year contract from the County Council during the year. Our financial management is strong because we've actually delivered almost exactly on our budget. So that's a credit to Jane and the staff on budgetary control during the year. And I think these points have helped us financially during the past few months of uncertainty due to the pandemic, that it may well have affected a lot of things in the organisation, but financially we have not been hit too badly. I don't intend to go through the whole document, but just concentrate on 2 pages, and my apologies if the actual printing is small, but that is how it comes out in the document. Firstly, on page 7, Kerry, if you can get that. This, for those who have good eyesight, is our income and expenditure summary. The terminology, things such as, I'll get this out myself here, donations and legacies, we have to put that in. That is actually the contracts from the city and the county council. Charitable activities are basically the other contracts which we have managed to obtain in the year. So my apologies for the terminology. It shows that we have a slight overspend during the year of just under £4,000, which is being met from reserves. This, however, was in accordance with our plans at the beginning of the previous year, because we actually intended to overspend to invest in services. So that was what we actually planned to do. So it didn't come as a bad news to us. We knew what was happening. There is a more detailed breakdown of income and expenditure, and that's shown in page 13 of the document, which I'm not proposing to go over just now, because the details have been up to the board previously during the year. And it's in the format of the management accounts that we actually get. The second page I would draw your attention to is page 9. If Kerry, you have that up already. Now, this is the balance sheet at March 2020, and basically it's the important document because it shows our financial position. And again, it shows we're in a relatively sound financial position. Our unrestricted funds are almost £259,000, which accords with our agreed reserves policy. So the identification of what we needed to keep in reserves is shown in that figure. A very small point is the increase in creditors from one year to the other. Now, that has happened because the City Council graciously paid us the first quarter of this year's money in last year early, so that was quite nice, but we have to take account of it in accountancy terms to show it as a creditor. So my apologies for that very quick whistle-stop tour of the accounts, but unless there are any questions anyone has, I would ask that we could agree the accounts for the year to 31st March 2020.
Thank you, Ian. Can we have, so Ian's proposed that. Could we have a seconder, please?
I can second that.
Thank you very much. Is that everybody in agreement? So I think that's it. We'll do it through. If somebody says no, we'll listen to that one and obviously take it as people have agreed. So thank you, Ian. That's the accounts have been adopted for the financial year 2019-2020.
There's also, Sarah, the other part about the appointment of the independent examiner, which I would propose that we continue using Community Accounting Plus for the current year, if someone wants to second that.
Have we got a seconder? Everybody's turn.
Yeah,
Joe,
you have to do that for the charity commissioners.
Who is that? Sorry,
they're effectively our auditors in a non-charitable sort of way.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And again, I think unless there's any objections, we'll continue with Community Accounting Plus. For the visitors that have joined us for this meeting, the Community Accounting Plus is a really important service that is being funded by the local authority and the county particularly, and it supports the voluntary and community sector to ensure that we have good financial management and that the voluntary and community sector is really well supported. It's an amazing service and one that we really value, and to have them as our independent examiners has been something that we're helping to. Through the fees that we pay for that, we help to support smaller charities receive subsidised funding. So I just wanted to make that point. I think it's really important that funding that we receive as a charity, we try as best we can to spend within the charity economy, if you like, so that it gets spread even further. So thank you very much, Ian, for that. So the next part of the business is to look at the retirement and election of our board members. For those of you not familiar with charity boards, and obviously we're a limited company as well, we work to a memorandum and articles of association, and within our rules, if you like, the rules of our organisation, every year a third of our eligible trustees retire on rotation. And what that means is people step down, they are then invited, if they wish to restand. And this year we have 4 trustees who are retiring. Those people are Ajanta Biswas, who is our vice chair, Lucy Cooper, Eddie Dandy and Sarah McDonald. I've been given notification that Ajanta will be restanding out of that list. So is there any of those others that are in attendance if they are wishing to restand from retirement? I think that's Eddie and Lucy that I know are on the call today. Nope. Okay. So could we just accept Ajanta back onto the board, please? That's all the trustees. Thank you very much. Any objection? Got to ask. No, thank you. So Ajanta, you're now back on the board, having retired briefly. I would like to publicly say a few things about the 3 people that have retired this evening. First of all, I'm going to talk about Lucy. Lucy's our longest standing board member, who's been with us now for 9 years. Lucy joined the first iteration of Healthwatch in the city at the same time that I was there, and continued after I left, and has been a tireless support for Healthwatch. And I think it's a real testament to the person who puts the number of years that Lucy has done so into supporting the endeavours of Healthwatch. That, you know, I'm in absolute admiration for the commitment that Lucy's made. So I want to say a very public thank you to her for being so supportive and bringing her enormous skill and knowledge to the board. Next, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Eddie Dandy, who's our next longest standing board member. Joined in 2016, along with Ajanta at the same time in the City Healthwatch as it was then. Eddie again has brought amazing energy to the organisation and was very instrumental in helping iron out a lot of the kinks in the restructure when we brought Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Healthwatches together, and then stayed beyond that experience to help us shape Healthwatch as we are today. Eddie, who is a pharmacist within the community, has brought enormous insight to Healthwatch from both his professional career, but also from his own lived experience, and we're really grateful to Eddie. Although I'm really pleased to say that Eddie will continue to be supporting us as a volunteer, working very strategically across issues around cancer on behalf of the board. And so while stepping down from the board, we won't be losing Eddie altogether, which I'm really happy about. And finally, Sarah McDonald, who is a local mental health professional, who joined our board about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, I think it was now. And due to pressure of work, Sarah's had to take the decision to step down this year and won't be rejoining us. Again, I wish to say a huge thank you to Sarah. Her insights on the board were incredibly helpful. She brought an enormous amount of professionalism to us, and one in which championing particularly the issues for young people in transition in mental health services. She brought a real championing of those people to our board, and will be missed. And we wish we could give everybody extra hours in the week so that they could join us. So I want to say thank you to those 3 people who haven't restood this year, and to confirm Ajanta back on the board. We have no other co-optees this year, and what the retiring trustees leave us with is some spaces on the board, which is something that we've not really had for a year. We've had a board of 11. We have a maximum of 12 with 3 co-optees for particular skills. And this next year we will be recruiting to increase our capacity and understanding of Bassett law. Emma Challens, who's here today, is one of our trustees who represents Bassett law. So we're aiming to give Emma some more support by recruiting to new trustees in that area, as well as looking to work with communities across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire to include new partners, to increase the diversity of our board, and to ensure that we are hearing voices at all levels of the organisation by recruiting new volunteers. So that's the end of the retirement and election of board members. We look to see what officers we require, and we manage those within our usual general meetings. Obviously, Ajanta is our vice chair, along with myself as chair, Ian as treasurer. And at the moment, we don't have a company secretary, so I would like to put a shout out for one. If there is somebody who's interested in becoming a company secretary, we would love to hear from you. But our thanks to Kerry, who manages and administrates for us. We're really grateful for that. Can I ask if there's any other business? What I'll do first is I'll just ask if there's any questions, because I know there's a number of people here that aren't from the board, and just want to make sure that we have a space for anybody to ask any questions. Well, I think those that, I know a lot of you have been with us all afternoon, and I really appreciate that you've been with us now for at least a couple of hours. So thank you for that. So without any more time, I'm going to say, have we got any other business amongst our trustees that you'd like to raise? No? I see some people, but not everybody. So I'm going to say that concludes the business of the annual general meeting. I wish to thank everybody who's on our board for the amount of work that you've done, particularly this year. Having to switch to this type of board meeting wasn't easy for everybody. I think we've all learned a lot as we've gone along through the year. We've learned how to signal to each other when we can't hear or we've gone on mute. We've managed to get through some enormous board agendas. Late at night, it feels like. We start at 4:30, but it feels a lot longer now that the nights are drawing in. So I really want to say thank you to everybody who volunteers their time. I think it's really important to recognise that people are doing this in their